Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy you could join me. Today we're making tofu. To begin this process, I'm going to take 4.5 cups of dry organic soybeans and soak them 6 to 8 hours in twice as much water. And as you can see, after being soaked, they swell in size and they become much softer. And now we're going to drain off the excess water and then add them to a high-speed blender with 4 cups of water. I run that on high for between 2 and 3 minutes or until it looks like all the soybeans have turned to a liquid. At this point, we are going to add the blended soybeans to a big pot with 10 cups of water. You will want to continuously stir until it reaches a boil. You may notice there's a foam starting to rise. You can just fold it back in. Now that we've brought it to a boil, we're going to let it continue to cook for about 10 minutes. We want the bean to be fully cooked. While waiting, I'm getting my sterilized bowl, my fine mesh strainer, and my cheesecloth ready to pour the mixture through. After about 10 minutes, I'm going to very carefully strain the liquid from the pulp. So what you'll have in your bowl is the soy milk that we'll be using to make the tofu, and the pulp is what's known as Okara, and we're going to make a hummus out of that. Although it is very hot, we're going to try to squeeze out as much of the soy milk out of the okara as we can. When we've got as much soy milk squeezed out as we can, we're going to set the okara aside to make our hummus in just a bit. Now we're going to add our soy milk back to the pot. We'll bring the soy milk back up to a boil and then remove it from the heat. While waiting, we're going to get our calcium sulfate dihydrate, or also known as gypsum, and we'll put 3 tablespoons into 1 cup of water and dissolve. At this point, I'm going to get my tofu press and mold and cheesecloth ready for my tofu. The soy milk has come up to a boil and it's time to add the gypsum. One final stir, and I add it into the soy milk very slowly and start stirring. Once it's fully stirred in, I will leave the soy milk and gypsum to do its magic for about 20 minutes. I will then ladle the soy into the mold, and the water will drain through into the bottom, and I'll keep dumping that out until I've gotten all the soy into the mold. I'll then cover the soy with the cheesecloth and press, and this will take a few times with a lot of effort to actually get the press into the clamps. Once you get it in the press and there's no more water coming out of the bottom, after 20 to 30 minutes, you should have a block of tofu. This is the most satisfying part of making tofu, is seeing your final product, and it's a nice, warm, firm block of tofu. Since I'm not going to use this tofu today, I'm going to put it back in the mold, and I'm going to put it in some cold water and put it in the refrigerator, and it'll last for up to a week in the refrigerator like this. So now we have our soy milk pulp, which is otherwise known as okara, and we're going to make okara hummus. And so we're going to want 1 3/4 cup of okara, and we're going to start by putting 3 to 5 tablespoons of water into our blender, and then the okara, and then you can add whatever spices that you want. You can make it super spicy, you can make it more sweet, you can make it garlicky, any spices that you desire, you can add to your hummus. Just blend on high until you get the desired consistency that you would like your hummus. You may have to add more water or a tad bit more Okara, and pull it all out, put it into a container, and you can refrigerate until it's cool. We had some organic corn chips with our hummus. It was very, very yummy. So it's now evening of the next day, and I'm going to want to use my tofu. So I'm going to take it out of the refrigerator and drain it off and put it back into the press and press out as much water as I can. Once I've drained off most of the water, I'm going to transfer it to another container because I'm actually going to freeze this tofu overnight. So as you know, I don't have a freezer, but it is about 8 degrees right now, and it will get even colder overnight. So I'm going to put my tofu outside on my porch where it will completely freeze overnight. And here it is. It's the next morning, and I go out to get my tofu, which should be completely frozen. And I want to use this tofu in a recipe tonight, so I want it to completely thaw out. After a whole day of thawing, I'm putting the tofu back in the press to get out any remaining water. I want this tofu to be extremely dry for this recipe that I'm going to use it for. After pressing out as much water as I can, I'm just going to take some paper towels and press out any excess moisture. So the recipe I'm making is going to make this tofu seem like a chicken nugget type consistency. So I'm going to break the tofu apart. I'm just going to tear it and not cut it apart so that it has more of a meat texture to it. Once I have it all torn into bits, I'm going to add some amino acids, or what you would call a soy sauce, and some maybe some teriyaki marinade, some salt and some spices. You can make it spicy. Some smoked paprika really makes it taste more like chicken. I don't really follow a recipe. I just kind of make it up as I go. So every time it's a little bit different. So you can just marinate it with whichever you'd like. It is important to use something to get the crunch on the outside of your tofu, and it's something to pull out any excess water. Some people use cornstarch. I use tapioca flour. You'll want to add some oil to your pan. You'll want to spread your tofu out on your baking sheet, and I believe that I set my oven to about 425 and I let it cook for about 15-20 minutes and then turned it over and then let it cook onto the other side and then let it rest for a little while outside of the oven to let it get crispy. We had chicken tofu, rice, and fermented vegetables for dinner, and it was very good.